AEW Dynamite tonight was an interesting show. There was actually quite a bit going on, and we now know how they intend to decide on MJF's challenger for Revolution. Now, AEW does not have any pay-per-views until March 15th, so we have a ways to go. But they are essentially doing a small tournament to decide on who the Revolution opponent is going to be. And it all kicked off tonight in the main event because we had a main event of Swerve Strickland one-on-one with Andrade El Idolo in what ended up being Andrade's biggest win in his entire AEW career. We had an excellent main event between these two men with a finish that surprised me a little bit. It surprised me a little bit. I say only a little bit because if you think about it, the winner of this match, we were told, is going to be wrestling Kenny Omega in Las Vegas next week on Dynamite. And obviously, there are unresolved issues between Kenny Omega and Andrade because of what happened with the whole contract situation. Kenny Omega was laid out by Andrade months ago, and then nothing ever came of it. It was never spoken of again. It's kind of a big loose end that really needed to be tied up. And I thought maybe they would use this as an opportunity to tie up that loose end. But I couldn't be sure because it is Swerve, and generally he's pretty well protected. I was very happy to see Andrade get the win tonight. I think that was the right call. We now know that it's going to be Kenny Omega and Andrade next week on Dynamite. The winner of that match is going to go on to wrestle Hangman Adam Page next month, and the winner of that match will then take on MJF. And there is a certain name that maybe you may notice is missing from this conversation, and we'll talk about why that is. So at least now we have some clarity on how all of this is going to be sorted out. Meanwhile, MJF has his own issues with one Brody King, which we've known about, but they were once again cropped up on him here this week. And we had a big match that was made for the show next week. So the World Championship picture here in this company continues to be the most interesting part of the show. And I wish there was more going on that interested me as much as what has been going on with MJF and his kind of merry-go-round of challengers. But that is really the most interesting thing on the show at the moment. Now, beyond that, there was a few other things that happened here tonight. We had a new debut. Now, this seems like a weekly occurrence here in AEW. That in and of itself is not really a big surprise. What was a surprise was the swiftness with which this person made his debut, because we only just learned that his contract with WWE was expiring. I'm not aware of there being a specific date that was floated. I didn't know what the day was that this man was going to officially become a free agent. But evidently it already happened because Tommaso Ciampa is officially all elite. And I know this because he got the graphic. Here it is and everything. Here it is. AEW Tommaso Ciampa is all elite. Never really official until you get a graphic. He's already got his Psycho Killer t-shirt. I don't know what's going on with this jacket with the collar and all that, but he came out tonight. And look, as debuts go, in terms of the presentation, I don't think they could have done a better job, especially on the music. Whether or not AEW ends up being the best landing spot for him is going to be in the eye of the beholder. Right? Obviously, he wanted to go to AEW, and so he ended up in AEW. And in AEW, he's going to have the freedom to work other places as well, possibly even New Japan. And that is something that we had heard about recently. I think it was Meltzer, who reported that Ciampa really had an interest in pursuing New Japan, right? Not necessarily full-time, but just wanting to work there, which is a little questionable just given the fact, he is 40 with a bad neck. And obviously they work, a very rough style over there in New Japan. So I would imagine that whatever he does over there, if he does end up doing some stuff with them, would probably be limited. But if that was something that he wanted to do, then this was a no-brainer for him because AEW has the partnership with New Japan, whereas TNA does not. And I thought TNA would be a great landing spot for him because they just got television on AMC. And he's the kind of person who I could see being vaulted into that World Championship picture, wrestling people like Mike Santana. And I think that would have been a good spot for him to be in. And then he also, of course, could have worked, independence and whatever he wants to do. My fear with him going to AEW is the fear that I have with anybody at this point going to AEW, unless they're a big, big name, which is that there are so many people that are under contract to this company. And even in just the last month, look at all of the people that they have signed, that they have brought in. And I'm sure he's not done yet. I'm sure there will be more. Where is Ciampa a month from now, 2 months from now, going to land in the pecking order? That was my concern, where if he were to go to a TNA, he would be in a much better position, I think, to be featured in a meaningful way. The jury is out on whether or not that's going to happen in AEW, because in AEW, he is one of many, 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 many people on that roster. But for one night, him coming out tonight felt like a big deal. And I thought they treated, as far as presentation-wise, treated his debut like it was a big deal. He's going to be challenging for the TNT Championship this weekend. So we'll talk more about how that all came about, and I got some more thoughts on Ciampa as well. But we don't got to wonder anymore where he's going to end up, because now we have our answer. We also had 3 championship matches on this show. No title changes. Went 0 for 3 in terms of title changes. Unfortunately, in the tag team championship match, it appeared that there was an injury, which really fucking sucks. And I'm hoping it's not as serious as this person seemed to think it was. We'll talk about that and the rest of the show. I thought that it was very similar to last week's show in that the in-ring is really what carried the show. Had a lot of good matches on this show. My big gripe with the show last week was it was very light on story. Right? We already know there's a lot of people coming after MJF, right? We saw it again this week. And that's great. I think they should keep that up. But we already knew that. There really wasn't a whole lot of story progression on the show last Wednesday. Tonight, they did a little bit of a better job, mainly with the Callis family stuff. There were some backstage segments where they sort of forwarded things with Okada and Fletcher and Takeshita, really for the first time since World's End, which was a month ago. I don't know what took them so long. So it was a little bit better in that regard. They still need to do a better job, though, I think, as far as beyond just the in-ring, coming up with some really focused, really, compelling, interesting story-related segments that aren't just quick backstage hits. They still have some work to do on that. But as far as the matches on the show, it carried the day, especially that main event. And we had a women's championship match on the show as well. That I thought was very good. So we'll talk about all of it. This is your Wednesday Night Dynamite review. It is January 28th, 2026. I'm the Solomonster. Thank you guys for hanging out with me here on a Wednesday night. You guys know the drill. 90,000 strong. If you are not a subscriber, please go ahead and hit that sub button. Hit the like button as well. We're going to find out right now what the likes goal is to do Be the Booker, because we're going to bust out the wheel. If you wheel, let's find out right now what the number that we need is to do Be the Booker. Quick spin. 432. So we need a minimum 432 likes in order to do Be the Booker. You guys know what to do. It's all going to be on you guys. I know sometimes on Wednesday tends to be one of the slower days of the week. But anyway, 432 is the goal, so go ahead and let's see if we can make that happen. And also, this weekend, there's a big show coming up, in case you didn't know. I wouldn't fault you if you didn't know, because the promotion for it up until this week has pretty much been fucking dog shit. But the Royal Rumble is this weekend. And I am going to be live on Saturday night, probably around 9 o'clock or so. For the Royal Rumble review. And it's an early start time for that show, 2 p.m. Eastern. But we'll have some fun with that. The Royal Rumble is always my favorite event of the year. Doesn't really feel like Royal Rumble right now. But usually once the show hits, generally speaking, they tend to be fun. So that's what I'm hoping for. Hopefully you'll be with me. All right, let's get into this here. We'll start from the top. And we'll zip on through this, because they opened the show tonight with Kenny Omega coming out for his match. Now, you see, Kenny Omega, he was scheduled for a match on tonight's show. He had some stiff competition. Let me tell you. I wasn't sure if Kenny Omega was going to be able to overcome the odds here. I wasn't sure because we had Kenny Omega one-on-one with Rocky Romero. Yes. Of the Don Callis family, the same Rocky Romero, I should point out to you, who has not won a match, a singles match, in an AEW ring or a Ring of Honor ring since October of 2024. And that was in Ring of Honor. I couldn't even tell you the last time, if ever, that he won a singles match in an AEW ring. But if it happened, it predates October of 2024. So this is the competition they found here for Kenny Omega. Omega quickly hit a slingshot dive out to the floor. And then back inside, we got the Kitaro Crusher, which led to Rocky briefly taking a powder outside the ring. Got a cheap shot in. He escaped a Snapdragon. He ended up eating a V-trigger, a Snapdragon, another V-trigger, and then finally, just put this thing away. The One-Winged Angel, and Kenny Omega picks up the win. You know, for a guy who cut that promo a few weeks ago and told the entire world, you know, I don't want to just be handed a shot at the World Championship. I'm going to earn my way back into the world title scene, right? I'm going to earn my way to be the number one contender. You would think that they would be able to find, competition that is a little bit better than Rocky Romero. Because you look at Rocky Romero's win-loss record, it ain't great. It's not. So you would think he would want competition at a little bit of a higher level. I don't see how this really accomplishes that, but it was a quick 3-minute win for Kenny Omega. So Tony Schiavone climbs into the ring after this. He is rocking a neon yellow tie. And he's got Nikes to match. He was radioactive as he climbed into the ring. And he's talking to Kenny Omega about all the possible challengers for MJF's championship. And Schiavone said that the two top contenders are going to face off at Grand Slam Australia, which I believe it's going to be a collision special. It's a Saturday. I think it's Valentine's Day. So I think that's going to be a taped collision special, which is what it may have been last year as well. The winner of that match is going to then challenge MJF for the championship in Los Angeles on March 15th at Revolution, which, just be aware, that is a Sunday pay-per-view. A lot of their pay-per-views are on Saturdays. This one is on Sunday, which honestly, for me, is probably better in many ways, because sometimes these Saturday shows can really fuck up my weekend schedule as far as the podcast goes, so I don't necessarily mind it. But the winner of the main event tonight between Andrade and Swerve Strickland will face Kenny Omega in Las Vegas next week to determine one of those spots in Australia. Omega said that he hates to repeat himself, but AEW is supposed to be where the best wrestle. So Omega said that whether it's someone that he really hates, like someone from the Don Callis family, or someone that he loves, he will become the world champion once again. And at that point, that brought out his old friend, the cowboy, Hangman Adam Page, down to the ring. And Page said that Omega, he looks good, but truth be told, after all these years, he'd rather be fighting beside him than fighting against him. But with the world title at stake, so be it. So he made the mistake of looking past Samoa Joe and the ops and hoping that he would get to defend the title against Kenny one day, but because of a kick to the balls by Hook, things are a little bit different now. So as much fire and passion as Omega has, he will not be the next world champion. It will not be Andrade. It will not be Swerve. It will be him. It will be Hangman. So, of course, Swerve is not going to allow that to go without getting a word in here. So Swerve Strickland makes his way out to the ring. And he excused himself for sounding like a broken record, but he came back to AEW for a world championship, and he has not been pinned since returning. Says his mission remains the same. He is getting back his world title. He doesn't care who he has to stomp out to get it. Omega said that he fancies himself at being pretty astute at reading the room, and he feels the animosity between them, and he's looking for a fight. And Strickland laughed and says, "More than you will ever know." So then we hear Don Callis' voice like nails on a chalkboard. Instant heat as he makes his way out onto the stage. And he tells Swerve to enjoy being undefeated. It ends tonight when Andrade pins him. And he goes, little Kenny, Daddy is here to tell him when Andrade beats Swerve, he's coming for Kenny Omega. And Callis said he hasn't forgotten about Hangman. He has something special in mind for him. Ooh, maybe a new member of the Callis family. We don't have enough of those. I think we need a new member. I'm surprised they didn't debut Ciampa as a new member tonight. That might have been the most shocking part of the entire show. I was fully expecting. That's one of the reasons I didn't want him coming here in the first place. I was convinced that if he showed up, he was going to be the newest member of the Don Callis family. So all three of them, he says, are going to understand that the Callis family runs this show. And Omega sprinted down the aisle and chased him to the back. So it is going to be Kenny Omega against, and I already mentioned the outcome, it's going to be Kenny Omega against Andrade in Las Vegas next week. The winner is going to wrestle Hangman in Australia. Now, why does Hangman not have to qualify for this? Well, my guess, they didn't outright say this, but my assumption is that it was going to be Hangman Page one more time against Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe has said he wants his rematch. He wants to come after the World Championship. He just beat Speedball, right, last week. Excalibur mentioned earlier in the show on commentary that Samoa Joe sustained a non-contact injury. He sustained an injury in training this week, and they wished him well. They didn't give any other details about how serious the injury is, what the injury is. Is it a cover because he has to go film something? Like, we don't know. I'm taking it at face value that he suffered some kind of training injury. But that sucks. And I assume that's why Hangman has no opponent, and he's just going to Grand Slam. And he's going to meet the winner of the Omega and the Andrade match next week. So for the time being, at least Samoa Joe is out of the world title picture. Again, I've been loving what they're doing, you know, where everything is just so hyper-focused on the World Championship. And somebody in the chat, might have been Quiz, before I went live, who made the comment. It's very true. Think of how long the world title was locked in a briefcase. Almost a year. We did not see the physical belt, right? It was locked away in a briefcase by the Death Riders. And so now the World Championship, right? We see it, and it shines brightly. It's one of the best looking belts in all of wrestling. It was number one. Now it's number two, behind the IWGP. But it's nice that we have all of these people that are, you know, they have one common goal in mind. Everything is just revolving around the championship. And it's something that we are seeing right now in MJF's reign. He hasn't been champion for very long. But it's a nice change, you know, from what we had previously. And he's the champion. He's not wrestling every week, but he's appearing on the show every week. He had the match with Bandito, right, last or 2 weeks ago. He's going to be wrestling non-title on the show next week. And then, you know, we'll see if he ends up wrestling in Australia as well. But I like it. I like it. The more the merrier as far as competition for that title. That's what it should be about. He needs to have eyes in the back of his head, right? They're coming from everywhere, right? He's got to sleep with one eye open. The sharks are circling. That's the way it should be. Now we had Jon Moxley against Ace Austin. This was a Continental title qualifier, or Eliminator. They love their Eliminator. Tony loves his Eliminator matches. So we got an Eliminator match here. Outside of the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal that we had on this show last month, this was Ace Austin's first match on Dynamite. Now, he was supposed to be in a tag team match, I think, on Collision this past weekend. And there were some travel issues with the weather. He wasn't able to make it. My guess is the reason this match is happening is because it was a make good for him. Yeah, he couldn't be there on Saturday, so he ended up getting a match on Dynamite. We may not see him have another match on Dynamite for 9 months. I don't know. But there he was tonight. And he was controlling most of the commercial break. Moxley, though, turned the tables as soon as things came back. Took Austin up in the corner with a superplex. Later on, both men were trading strikes until Austin avoided a corner charge, and he hit a springboard kick for a 2 count. Austin took too long capitalizing, though. That allowed Moxley to fire off a cutter out of nowhere followed by a Death Rider, and he picked up the win. Now, after the match was over, Konosuke Takeshita's music hits, and Takeshita power walks down to the ring, and he climbs inside, and he confronts Moxley, and pointing at the Continental Championship, and Moxley said that he remembered how Takeshita beat him in the Continental Classic, and again, he pointed at the title again, and then Takeshita left. So then Jake Doyle and Mark Davis, they ambush Moxley from behind, and they stood tall. And we were told that their tag team title match, which they were scheduled for tonight, was not next, which was very weird, because you would think that's what was about to happen here. But he's like, no, the match is not next. That's coming up later on in the show. Instead, we're getting a TNT title match next. So that was a little bizarre. But them attacking Moxley here would play a very big role in the tag team title match later on in the show. Obviously not two of the brightest members of the roster, that they would go and, fuck up Moxley when they have their own championship match later on the show. Gee, I wonder if I wonder how that's going to end for them. We'll see, because we're not there yet. But at least now we know which member of the Callis family Moxley was referring to when he put Callis on notice last week. Remember, I made the comment, I go, you're going to have to narrow it down as far as which member you're talking about. Takeshita is that member. That's my guess, probably going to be the match in Australia at Grand Slam. As far as the Ace Austin match, again, his first match on Dynamite, singles match, this Ace Austin guy, it's pretty good. I mean, you probably didn't need me to tell you that, but he's pretty good. It would be kind of nice if we got to see him a little more often on this show. We saw Mark Briscoe. He was up next against El Clone for the TNT Championship. Now, this match was originally supposed to happen on Collision. If you remember, the Collision taping was canceled because of all the storms in Texas. So they taped Collision after Dynamite last week, and they held off on this match, and instead they got a slot here on the live show tonight. And Asuka is very upset. Hey, well now, thank you for the $15. Well now. Well done. Ace Austin is going back to Collision. Yeah, it was his maiden voyage here to Dynamite in singles action, and he's going back home, boys. He's going back home. Back to Collision he goes. But we had Mark Briscoe and El Clone. So they had a slugfest late in the match until Briscoe fired off an exploder and a fisherman's bomb. Briscoe went up top. He hit Froggy Bow. Clone kicked out. Briscoe signaled for a J Driller. Now, it looked to me like he hit the J Driller. Okay? He hit the J Driller. El Clone pops right back up to his feet. Like he bounced out of it and landed on his feet and no-sold it, which I hated. And then he fired off a Pele kick. There was a one-legged Asai moonsault outside. Clone then quickly took Briscoe back in, went up top, hit a double foot stomp. Briscoe ended up fighting off a portal bomb and then got a high stack and got the flash pin. So he no-sold a J Driller and he kipped up out of it. Now, I don't know if the idea, because I know some people might be like, oh, well, he didn't no-sell it. He avoided the move. If you watched the sequence, it looked like he fucking dropped him on his head with the J Driller. And he just bounced right back up to his feet. So I don't care what the intent was. I'm telling you what it looked like. And I hated that. To me, that is a move that should just be protected from here on out. And if he's not going to win with it, or if you're going to do something like this where the other person is going to no-sell something, no-sell the Froggy Bow. There's any number of moves that you can just sort of no-sell like it's not a big deal. The J Driller, in my opinion, should not be one of those moves. I'm sorry. Not from El Clone. But the fact that they had El Clone kick out of that, and then it took a high stack at a flash pin for Mark Briscoe to beat this guy, So hardly a decisive win. Tells you how strongly they put over El Clon here in this match. Even though he didn't win. They put him over about as strong as you could put somebody over without them actually winning the match. And look, Arez, he's the one who portrays El Clon. Arez is very good, right? He's a very good wrestler. But again, I hated that Jay Driller spot. So after the match, Briscoe took the mic and he said that he's not doing any ducking or dodging and he's going to be right back in action on Saturday night. And he loves the concept of the TNT title open challenge. But one asterisk, no one from the Don Callis family, because he's sick and tired of them. So step up. Who's it going to be? And the lights go out. And all of a sudden, on the big screen, we see and hear a beating heart, and then the words "Psycho Killer" on the screens on either side, because they don't have tunnels anymore. If you'll notice, they have kind of a main screen in the middle from the entrance where you walk out, and then two more vertical screens on the side. So we had "Psycho Killer," and it sounded like the crowd still didn't pick up, and I knew instantly. I'm like, oh shit. But it didn't sound like everybody picked up on it right away. But then the music kicked in, the name popped up, and then this got a big reaction. And it was Tommaso Ciampa. Psycho Killer himself. He just filed the trademark applications, right, in the last few weeks. And just got his, not release really, but he gained his freedom, I guess you would say, because his WWE contract expired. And he made the announcement that he was not renewing. And he made it sound like that was his decision and not the company's decision. I'm not sure which, but again, it sounds like it was his call. Like if he wanted to stay, he probably could have stayed, but he opted to leave. Why did he opt to leave? I don't know. You'd have to ask Tommaso Ciampa. You could look at what he was doing in WWE and you could surmise from that maybe he realizes, look, I'm not getting any younger and I'm on borrowed time with this neck. He mentioned in the letter that he posted on social media, you know, my first decade and then my second decade in wrestling I spent in WWE after being like on the indies in the first decade. And now in my third decade, my final decade, you know, he's kind of venturing out on his own and doesn't know what the future holds. So maybe he just wanted to try new things before all is said and done. Maybe he was unhappy with the position that he was in because let's be honest, guys like him and Johnny Gargano, the spot that they were in on SmackDown, that was as good as it was going to get. He was a big deal in the black and gold NXT days, right? He was a main eventer. He was like a Hall of Famer in NXT. He was never that on the main roster, and at this point, he was never going to be that. So if he was unhappy with his position, that would be reason enough for him to go, you know what? I'm going to bounce. I'm going to bounce and I'm going to go somewhere else. Or I'm going to wrestle in a whole bunch of different places. Because I just get the impression this guy just really loves wrestling. And maybe he just wants to work and he wants to wrestle as many new people and maybe some old faces as he possibly can. And you can't fault the guy for not wanting to be stuck on SmackDown wrestling, you know, Axiom and wrestling the same fucking people over and over and over again. And as they call up new people from NXT, who do you think are the guys that are going to be there doing jobs for Obafemi or Ethan Page or Royce Keys or whoever they call up from NXT? It's going to be people like Matt Cardona and Kit Wilson and Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. So I can't get in the man's head and tell you exactly what the reason was. Maybe it was monetary, it was financial, who knows? But I really thought that TNA would be a good landing spot for him. And he felt otherwise. Either that or AEW came in with a better offer. Where he'll land up, you know, in a few weeks, let alone a few months, I think we all know where he's going to end up. But for now, he debuts and he comes out and he confronts the TNT champion, someone that he has history with from their days together in Ring of Honor. So there is some history there. But he gets into the ring and he stares at the TNT title. And he's telling Briscoe he's coming for it. And then he gave Briscoe a kiss on the cheek. And then he left the ring. And he went over to someone, it might have been his family. I think his daughter maybe was in the front row. I couldn't see. It was a little kid who had headphones on to protect her ears. So my guess is his family was there at ringside. But again, he got a great response here from the crowd. And I thought, as far as the presentation is concerned, fucking awesome theme song. And again, the beating heart and everything else. I thought production-wise, presentation-wise, this was great. That song is a definite home run from Mikey Ruckus. Apparently it's called My Shadow Knows. It's not on Spotify yet, but hopefully soon it will pop up on Spotify. So yeah, night one was a success. I worry about, where is he going to end up going for? And not like he'll be competing and wrestling MJF, for the World Championship. If it were me, and I know Mark Briscoe hasn't had it for very long, but if it were me, I put the title on him. Like, they're doing this title match on Collision this weekend, I put the fucking title on him. That's what I would do. Because let's say he goes in there and he loses, right? He loses to Mark Briscoe. Realistically, where does Tommaso... I'm grateful he's not in the Callis family, but realistically, where does Ciampa land? What role does he end up in? Because it would be kind of sad if he ends up in exactly the same position he was in on Friday nights. Now, he may be okay with that because the big difference is with AEW, he will have the freedom to work independent dates. He will have the freedom, if he wishes to work New Japan. I mentioned the New Japan angle. Maybe that was the deciding factor for him. Maybe he really wants to do something with New Japan. In AEW, he will have the chance to do that. Maybe he cares less about, okay, where in the pecking order am I going to land on Dynamite or on Collision? There's so many people on this roster. I just want to be able to work with all of them and then, kind of book my own shots and work a whole bunch of other places too. Maybe that's what makes him happy. I hope so. Clearly he made this choice for a reason, just like Josh Alexander, right? He chose AEW over WWE. One of the reasons he did that was because of the roster. There were people on that roster, including Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega was one of the big reasons why Josh Alexander chose AEW over WWE. He really wanted to work with Kenny Omega, and he got the chance to do so last week. Everyone has their reasons for it. I really don't think that the money these guys are being offered in some cases between the two companies is radically different. Like, I don't think there's a life-changing difference between the money that's being offered. I think it has more to do with, okay, who am I going to be working with? And what am I able to do outside, of what I'm doing for this company? Because I really want to work in all these different places. And also, don't forget, they have the relationship with CMLL, right? Who knows? Maybe there could be opportunities there. You got Claudio running around as the CMLL World Heavyweight Champion. You mean to tell me you can't see Ciampa, doing some stuff maybe over there, working at Arena Mexico? I hope it all works out. Ciampa's a great talent, and I hope that it all works out. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of him in a lot of different places. Backstage, Renee welcomed Kyle Fletcher, and at his request, Kazuchika Okada was there. And Kazuchika Okada is talking about using the screwdriver at World's End. And I'm like, World's End? January 28th. World's End, I think, was December 26th. It's been a month. And now we're finally following up on the screwdriver stuff. It took a little while. It took too long. But Okada said, look, I took the screwdriver because I wanted to win. I wanted to win, and I didn't really give any consideration to the fact that I used it and then you couldn't in your match. I wanted it to be you and me in the finals of the Continental Classic. And he apologized. He said, I'm sorry. So Fletcher said, look, it takes a big man to admit his faults, and I accept your apology. And they shook hands, and Fletcher walked off, and Okada just sort of stared at him as he walked off. And I thought for sure that when Fletcher was no longer within listening distance, Okada was just going to go, bitch. But he didn't. Maybe in his mind he did, but he did not call him a bitch. So all seems to be well for now with Fletcher and Okada. This will play into another backstage segment later in the show. MJF walked to the ring. The AEW World Champion was out next. First thing he did was look over at Taz, who has replaced Bryan Danielson on commentary. Danielson had mentioned that all the traveling apparently was really wreaking havoc on his neck. So I guess he's just not traveling anymore, which is too bad because I was enjoying him on commentary. But I mean, you know, it's Taz. So Taz is very good at what he does. It's good to have Taz back. So the first thing he does is look over at Taz over on commentary, and he goes, I can't believe they're making us work in a dump like this. I think they were in, where were they tonight? Cedar Park, Texas? They were somewhere in Texas. And Taz, they zoom in on Taz, and Taz is like, I don't know what to tell you. I ain't got no answers for you, champ. So before MJF could even get another word out, Brody King's music hits. He walks to the ring, and MJF asks if, can we speak like men? He told Bark Boy that last week he told him he needs to beat someone who matters if you want a shot at the champion. But yet here you are still following me around like a lost puppy. He goes, it's the same thing that you did with Malachi Black. Ooh. And he goes, it used to terrify me how you guys used to turn the lights on and off. So then you also follow that other guy around, Buddy Matthews. And he said, a name that strikes fear into the hearts of everyone. And then he asked, how's his ankle doing? Actually, his ankle is not doing well. You know, next month it's going to be a full year since he's been out. It's one of those fluky things, man. Like was it Okada? Was he wrestling Okada? I want to say maybe Okada, whatever the match was. It was a Grand Slam. And he came out for his match. Remember what happened? He came out for his match, and either he jumped over the top rope into the ring and it happened, or he was in the ring on the ropes and then he kind of jumped down. It was one of those like fluky things, and he just bent, like his ankle just bent the wrong way. And he proceeded to wrestle like a 15-minute match on an ankle that he had no business wrestling on. So I'm sure it made it that much worse. But that's what it was. It didn't happen during the match. It's total fluke occurrence. It's kind of like the Bianca Belair thing where, yeah, she's wrestling this match and she breaks her finger or a couple fingers. It ended up being more of like a broken knuckle. But like in terms of like wrestler injuries, you're like, oh, all right, well, this person broke a finger, they broke a knuckle. They'll be back soon enough. It's going to be a year. Yeah, like I'm hoping we see her on Saturday, but if we don't, I have no fucking idea when we're going to see her again. It's just, sometimes the smallest, stupidest things are the ones that really do the most damage and keep you out for the longest time. So, yeah, to answer his question, his ankle is not doing very well. I don't know when we're going to see him again. So now Brody says, or MJF says Brody follows a loser like Bandito. So maybe he should follow MJF. He goes, he'll pay him to follow him around. But first, we have to fix your aesthetic. And then he had this great line. This is a great line. About how I never met a liberal man that looks more like a Nazi than Brody King. And even he couldn't help but laugh at that. He goes, but it's okay. MJF will get him in a nice suit. He'll get a nice scarf like I have. Because the pipe dream of you becoming the champion is just that. It is a dream. The reality is, in order to be the champion of the world, you need to be a leader. And just like these schmuck fans, you are nothing more than a follower. So then it was Brody's chance to speak. And promos are, I wouldn't say promos are his strong suit. Not that he's terrible at them, but I don't know, for a guy who is, bang on when he comes out as far as projecting intimidation. I mean, you get a guy like Brody King walking towards you and barking, that's going to be intimidating, right? So he's got that down pat. When he cuts his promos, though, I wouldn't say he cuts an intimidating promo. Like, that's not really his strong suit. But you got to cut promos, right? You got to be able to speak and communicate. And so here was his chance to retort to MJF. He goes, look, I don't need to follow anybody around. And what you described, it's called friends, which is clearly something you never had. But he said MJF was right about him needing to beat somebody who matters. So what he did was he sat down with Tony Khan and they thought about who Brody could face to potentially earn himself a shot at the AEW World Championship. And they figured it out. Someone worthy enough. MJF. And this is not what MJF wanted to hear, based on the look on his expression, said it all. So next week, they're going to have an Eliminator match. There's that word again. The Eliminator match. It's coming up next week. And when Brody wins, the two of them will then square off for the AEW World Championship in Australia at Grand Slam. And he will become the leader that AEW needs. And then he barked at him, and that was the end of the promo. So it all blew up in MJF's face. I like this. I actually, for all the shit that I give them about these stupid Eliminator matches, this I actually liked, and I'll tell you why. Because I generally do not like when they do this stuff. I wish they wouldn't do it. Just the idea, you got to beat the champion twice, basically, to become the champion. You got to beat them first time, then you got to come back and beat them a second time. In this case, though, story-wise, right? It makes sense, and there's a reason for it. As opposed to how these Eliminator matches usually happen, like the one with John Moxley and Ace Austin tonight, or the one with him and Shelton or anybody else, right? Take your pick. They're just randomly assigned most of the time. They fall from the sky at random, and you never know what you're going to get. It's like putting a bunch of names in a hat and just randomly picking them out. And that's how we get these Eliminator matches, more often than not. In this case, they've been building this now for a few weeks, where Brody King, the stuff with Bandito is what led to what we now see with MJF and with Brody King. And so MJF has been trying to avoid this man, right, at all costs, literally ran away from him last week, ran for his life. And so if he wants Brody to find somebody worthy enough to beat, well, who better than MJF himself? So again, his plan backfired. It blew up in his face. And at least here, it's like, okay, you know what? That actually makes sense. At least there's a reason for it. At least there's a story for it. Just don't make a habit out of it. But in this case, I'll allow it. I'm okay with it. Any other circumstance, probably not. But here, I think it works. And they aired a video package for the Young Bucks with them talking about how a little bit of humility is what they needed. And they're going to be back to their roots. They're challenging any team to face them in Las Vegas next week for a super kick party. Are we going to get another new signing? Are we getting another new tag team added to the roster? Who is facing the Young Bucks next week? We had Kris Statlander. She will not be wrestling the Young Bucks next weekend, or next week rather, but she did defend her AEW Women's World Championship here on this show against Thekla. I feel like they've been building to this match now for a few months. So the Sisters of Sin, they came out with Thekla for her entrance, but they left soon after. And because we were reminded that if they want a shot at the AEW Women's Tag Team titles, which were offered to them by the Babes of Wrath, then they have to keep their distance from this match. So Thekla offered a handshake at the very beginning. She slapped Statlander before taking a powder outside. So to the outside, Statlander picked her up. She held her up for a while. Very impressive delayed vertical suplex. Follow that up with a slingshot into the ring steps, sternum first. So Thekla worked over Statlander during a commercial. Statlander tried a Death Valley driver. Thekla escaped to the apron and guillotined her. And then she rolled through a top rope dive. Statlander, though, charged and motored down with a lariat. Champion then took too long going up top, so that allowed Thekla to slap her and join her on the rope. She delivered a spider suplex. Statlander rolled outside, tried to create some distance. And Thekla met her with a crossbody block. And the crowd was, to my ear, sounded like the crowd was pretty solidly behind Thekla here. Statlander kicked out at 2, back inside. Statlander fired off an uppercut, turned her back, though, to charge, and that gave Thekla enough time to hit a spear. We got a little bit of a reset here. Both women started swinging from their knees. They rose to their feet. Statlander was screaming at Thekla, "Beat me. Go ahead, beat me." Instead, though, Thekla spat in her face. So the Black Widow was briefly applied. Thekla, though, wrenched at the arm and followed with a curb stomp for a close 2 count. We got a spider pose from the challenger, and as she charged in, she ran right into a thrust kick. Thekla rolled out of a Saturday Night Fever into a roll-up. Then she matrixed out of a charge, tried another spear. Statlander caught her with a doctor bomb, and then the Saturday Night Fever to retain the title. After the match, Willow Nightingale, Harley Cameron, they came down to the ring to celebrate with Statlander, and then out on stage comes Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. And they stand there and they stare from afar. And that is how this came to an end. My only criticism here is that they only got about 11 minutes for a match that felt like they took, at the very least, many, many weeks, if not a few months, building. They took their time really building to this, Thekla getting this world championship match. And I just felt like it was about ready to kind of go into that next gear, and then it ended. Because I thought what we got here was excellent stuff from these two. I just wish they had a few more minutes to really, again, take it to that next gear. And I also would not have minded a title change here. I like Statlander as the champion. I do worry, though, now she beat Thekla clean in the middle of the ring. So unless Tekla's going to get another rematch for some reason, Thekla had her shot, and she goes to the back of the line now. And I'm not sure who's next. You had Megan Bayne come out, and she's another one. I wouldn't mind her, ending up in a program with Statlander. But I assume her and Penelope Ford coming out, they were eyeballing Harley Cameron and Willow. So they're going after the women's tag team titles. Which, I guess that didn't stop Willow from going after the TBS title. So people love holding multiple championships. I don't get the sense that they're going into Megan Bayne and Kris Statlander. I think Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, they're eyeing the tag belts. What does that mean for Stat? Who is the next obvious one in line for Statlander? I feel like her just beating Thekla now, it's like, okay, we've kind of exhausted all of the obvious options. I don't know who's next. I kind of feel like we've hit a wall now as far as what's next for her. Because again, Mercedes is taking time off. I don't think she's going to be coming back. Not now. She could be back, I suppose, for Revolution, but she's going to be out of the picture for a while. I'm not expecting her back in the next few weeks. And if they want to tell that story with her actually winning the championship, that's a later story. You're not doing that now. So I don't think they're going to her. I don't know. I don't know who's next. As far as credible challengers, I feel like we've exhausted all the main ones. Thunder Rosa. Who said Thunder Rosa? Isn't Thunder Rosa out? Yeah, no, we're not looking at Thunder Rosa next in line. Stat has been lame as champ, says Bash. I don't know. I think she does a great job as far as the matches that she's been having. I just think she needs a really good opponent and a really good story. She doesn't have that right now. They exhausted the Jamie Hayter match. Thekla now has come and gone. If they don't go to Bayne, I don't know. I'm just struggling to see who that next obvious challenger would be. I don't know. Don Callis was backstage with Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita. He was talking about bringing the gold home to Daddy. This is what he keeps saying. He keeps calling himself Daddy. Kind of weird. But he's going to bring home the gold. Andrade has already made his intentions known about challenging for the AEW World title. And Callis told Takeshita, take Kyle's lead from earlier and forgive Okada. Because if you look up Fletcher's name in the dictionary, you'll find TNT. And he'll be bringing home the title to the family, whether it's from Mark Briscoe or whether it's from Tommaso Ciampa. So Callis said that he's going to go enjoy a martini, while Davis and Doyle take home the tag team titles. And then he walked off. And then Takeshita looks at Kyle Fletcher and he asks him, he goes, "You forgave Okada?" And Fletcher tried to explain, and Takeshita just walked off disappointed. He was very upset about this. You know, I got to say, I understand how crowded it is in the world title scene right now. This is what we've been talking about, right? MJF looking over his shoulder. You got Hangman and Omega and Swerve and possibly Andrade and Brody King. And he just defended against Bandito and Samoa Joe and eventually Will Ospreay, right? All these different names. It's very crowded. However, the idea of Kyle Fletcher just being slotted back in the TNT title picture, it's a step down. It feels like we're going backwards with Fletcher when we should be going full steam ahead. We're kind of taking a couple of back steps here. And that bothers me. Even though I understand right now there's really no obvious spot for him. And again, it would be heel against heel if you had him and MJF. And that doesn't really make a lot of sense. I get that. I just don't like how it feels like we're going backwards with him. Yeah, we gotta figure out something else for Kyle Fletcher here. Him just going back after the TNT title, it just doesn't sit well with me. We had FTR against Jake Doyle and Mark Davis for the AEW tag team titles. We got a series of shoulder tackles here from Doyle to Cash Wheeler, who tried a leapfrog. Doyle, though, hit a chest bump in midair. So Davis tagged in. Harwood suffered the same fate as Davis. Started a chop exchange. Hit a standing senton. As he hit the ropes, though, Wheeler low-bridged him. Doyle got sent outside as well. Wheeler attempted a dive. He got caught, and then he got lawn-darted into his partner, and the fans were cheering for Davis and Doyle. They were cheering for the Callis family, which is a hard thing to do because these people do not like Don Callis, but there are members of his family that people like Takeshita. So they haven't been partners for very long, but in the last few weeks, it has felt like the fans have, taken in a more positive way than not to this new pairing. I like this new team, actually. I think that they add something to the tag team division that maybe the tag team division had taken away from them with the Luchasaurus injury, right? They lost that team and it's cooled down a little bit now. And we were talking about how, okay, the AEW tag team division, it feels like it's got a new lease on life and look at all these teams. And now I feel like in the last few weeks, things have really cooled off. I almost feel like they're just sort of in a holding pattern until Cope and Christian come back. Whenever the hell that is, I don't know. But FTR is not dropping those belts until they do. And then they lost Jurassic Express. So it was like, okay, these guys work well together, and if they get a reasonable push, then, that could be something fun for the division. But, unfortunately, we don't know if we're going to be getting Davis and Doyle for a while because they come back from the break. Now, Harwood looks like his chest is a little bloodied up from all the chops from Mark Davis. Wheeler made the save. He plants Doyle with a power slam. It got no-sold, and Doyle mowed him down with a body block. Harwood got placed in the corner for a superplex. Wheeler made the save. And out on the apron, Wheeler spikes Doyle with a DDT. And it was at that moment that Jake Doyle immediately, he's on the apron, and he's up on his knees, and he's grabbing his right arm. And if you go back and you watch it, he looks up at Wheeler, who's also on the apron. He looks up at Cash Wheeler, and he audibly told him, I just tore my tricep. Oh, I'm sorry, I just tore my bicep, not tricep. I just tore my bicep. And we didn't see him again for the rest of the match. That was the end of Jake Doyle. Now, basically, what happened is when he took the DDT, with his right arm, he held on to the top rope, and it looked like it was maybe hyperextended. And I'm kind of hoping that's all it is. Now, I mean, he knows his body better than any of us do, but, sometimes you think it's one thing, it ends up being another. You think it's really bad, and it's not as bad. That's kind of what I'm hoping here. Maybe he just hyperextended it. Maybe he does have to take a few weeks off, but hopefully he didn't tear anything. But he seemed in that moment pretty sure that he tore his bicep. If he did, man, it fucking sucks. I mean, they literally just got paired up together. Like Jake Something just debuted like a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago max. And they were really just starting to get these guys going here. And then like this could be a total fluke occurrence where just by, and I don't know why he was holding the rope, but look, shit happens, right? He's holding the rope. Maybe, you take moves on the apron. You're trying to just brace yourself, whatever it is. And then something stupid happens. So we have to just wait and see how serious it is. But he seemed to think it was pretty serious. So that sucks. So Davis is on his own now. He took out Wheeler. He went up with Harwood, who slid out. And he crotched Davis. He hit an avalanche back suplex. Wheeler flew in off the top with a splash for a 2 count. Davis sent Wheeler outside before they could try a shatter machine, and he sank in a sleeper hold on Dax, who was flailing around. All of a sudden, the Death Riders show up. Jon Moxley is back out here. He has not forgotten what happened to him earlier in the show. And this is where I mentioned these two guys aren't too bright. This is why. What did you think was going to happen? Did you think this was going to go unpunished? So the Death Riders come out. Daniel Garcia takes the referee, right? He takes Paul Turner, which allowed Moxley to blast Davis in the head with the Continental title. Davis is sent backwards right into a shatter machine, and FTR pins him to retain the tag team titles. So, kind of a predictable finish there. I mean, you had to know the Death Riders would take their revenge for what happened earlier in the show. And the Death Riders and the Callis family, they are feuding with each other, so it makes sense. It was a very like WWE Raw style finish. We get so many of these finishes, so many more of these finishes on any given episode of Raw or SmackDown that when they happen on an AEW show, it's more noticeable because it doesn't happen in this way very often. But that's how I describe it. It's like a WWE finish here. And so, although the referees in both companies, they're all made to look like just fucking morons. So it was a cheap win. The match itself, I thought, was solid. The injury, though, that kind of cast a dark cloud over things. And again, all I can say is hopefully he's not going to be out for too long because, before it was Mark Davis who got hurt. He only not that long ago came back from an injury, right? I think it was a foot injury. So now if Doyle is hurt, Davis is back on his own, which is just going to be death for him. Yeah, it's the simplest of spots. Well, I mean, look, when you're taking a DDT on the apron, I wouldn't call that the simplest of spots. But yeah, it wasn't like he was doing anything too crazy. I mean, he was taking a DDT. He just had his arm holding onto the rope, and whatever happened, happened. Maybe he felt something pop. I don't know. Renee was backstage with Orange Cassidy, who was talking about his feud with Wheeler Yuta. Said that Yuta is unrecognizable from the man that he knew 5 years ago with his dumb bushy beard. So Yuta walked in. Marina Shafir also walked in. She grabbed Cassidy by his hair. And as she did this, Timeless Tony Storm showed up and told her to unhand him, as Shafir is like a bad dose of the clap. Said you don't know how you got there, but she's going to need her to get out of here. Really? I wouldn't know. So Marina asks if Tony wants more milk, or does her girlfriend want more flowers? So Storm told her to piss off, and when her and Citrus Boy meet them, they'll be in some deep shit. And security separated all of them, and so I guess we're getting a mixed tag match. We're getting a mixed tag match very soon, apparently. When, I don't know, but we're getting a mixed tag match. And then the main event. It was Swerve Strickland, one-on-one against Andrade El Idolo, with the winner meeting Kenny Omega on Dynamite next week in Las Vegas. Before the final commercial break here, Andrade, this was early in the match, there's a lovely female fan in the front row. Very strategically placed. And Andrade goes over to this clearly planted fan in the front row. Takes her phone and snaps a selfie of the two of them together. And then as he goes to walk away, she grabs him by the arm. And she passes along. I thought she was passing along like her snotty tissue or something. But apparently it's I don't know, paper or napkin or something. She wrote her phone number. And then she kissed it. And then Andrade takes it and he shows like her lipstick's on there, like with the lips and everything. So, yeah, quite the ladies' man here. I mean, he is a single man now, I guess, right? So he's quite the Lothario. I will say, Andrade is in the best shape that I've ever seen him in. So good on him. I think they did something like this on Collision as well. Citrus Boy is so funny. Oh, that's Orange. Yeah, it's Orange Cassidy. He is Citrus Boy. So coming out of that break, Andrade is, he's on fire, man. He hit a tornado dive out to the floor. Back inside, he hit the moonsault where he lands on his feet and then immediately does a second moonsault, standing moonsault. He nailed that. And he was getting chants. I mean, the crowd was chanting, and he's in there wrestling Swerve, who's pretty popular himself. And he's part of the Callis family, all that. And he's got people chanting El Idolo. So they were into it. But then Swerve dropped him on the apron with the Death Valley driver. They ended up on the outside and on top of the barricade, where Swerve attempted a pile driver on the top part of the barricade, exactly what he did last week in his main event against Kevin Knight. So instead, this time, Andrade backdropped him, and Swerve landed spine first right on the top part of the barricade. So now both men are down on the floor, and Aubrey Edwards is administering the count. They both dove back in at the 9 count. We got a slugfest with forearm shots. Andrade tried for his message finish, which Excalibur says he is now calling the DM. Sliding into your DMs. Like that girl with the snotty tissue. So he went for the DM. Swerve avoided it, and he came off the ropes, and Andrade put his boot up. But then, like he was going to boot him in the face, but then he quickly dropped the boot, and just as quickly as possible, he turned, and man, he absolutely wrecked Swerve with that spinning back elbow that he does. Swerve ended up down in the corner. Andrade goes to the opposite corner. He comes charging out, but he charges right into a house call kick. And Swerve covered him. Andrade kicks out. Swerve went up top. Andrade, though, latched onto his leg. He climbs up with him. He hits, he takes Swerve down with an avalanche poison rana off the top. So then the Meteora knees in the corner connect, and then he plants him with the Hammerlock DDT that was very similar to the Hammerlock DDT that he beat Johnny Gargano with in one of the great matches of the black and gold era of NXT TakeOver Philadelphia. I saw that. I think in that case it was, I want to say that was an elevated Hammerlock DDT. I think Gargano was kind of draped over the ropes, but he definitely beat him with a Hammerlock DDT. I remember that because as soon as he pinned Gargano, the air went out of the building. The air went out of me, too. I'm like, oh, my God. If ever there was a match that was set up for a storybook ending finish, it was that one. And then Andrade just beat him. But it's still one of my favorite matches of the last 20 years. But here, unlike Johnny Gargano, Swerve kicked out. So Swerve ended up getting him in position for big pressure. Andrade rolled through, though, into a pinning combination, only for a 2. Swerve caught him with the house call kick. And again, he tried for big pressure. Andrade, though, reached out. And he grabbed the hold of Aubrey Edwards. I think he grabbed her by the wrist. So he grabs Aubrey by the wrist. And as she pulls herself away, that momentary distraction allows Andrade to lift his leg for the low blow. And then at that point, he hit him with the DM, which is his finish, and he pinned Swerve with his finish. I love it. I love it. This is how low the bar has been set, by the way, because everybody kicks out of everybody else's finish so many times that when you have a competitive back and forth match like this and one guy hits his finish and he wins with it, it's amazing. I'm very impressed. But I was more impressed that they actually had Andrade go over on Swerve. Now, it took a low blow to do it. He had to cheat. That's okay. This was the right outcome. And he just picked up the biggest win so far of his AEW career. And that means that next week we are getting Kenny Omega one-on-one against Andrade El Idolo. I love it for a few different reasons. The main reason I really like, well, there's two reasons. Number one, I like that it wasn't just so obvious that Swerve was going to go in there and win. You know, they gave him the win last week over Kevin Knight. He comes back this week. Back-to-back great main events, by the way, for Swerve Strickland. But he didn't have to win this match. He didn't have to win this match because I think you also don't want to just give away Kenny Omega against Swerve Strickland on Dynamite next week. Like, that could be a pay-per-view match. You don't have to give it away. And one of the reasons that you don't have to give it away next week is because you've already established an issue a few months ago between Kenny Omega and Andrade that went unresolved for reasons that were out of your control. Well, guess what? Andrade now is officially All Elite. He's under contract. He got him back. And you cannot allow Kenny Omega to, at some point, not circle back to the fact that this guy showed up and fucked him up and then disappeared. And then we never spoke of it again. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. So it's not like Omega called him out, but okay, now they're going to wrestle. And you at least have a recent history between them to draw from where Kenny never did get his revenge on Andrade for doing what he did. And now he will next week because Kenny Omega is going to beat Andrade. So you at least gave Andrade a big win this week before he loses next week. This was the right outcome. This was an excellent main event. Fantastic match. Again, Andrade had the fans cheering for him at different points during the match because he was on his A game here. You know, I mean, if they could keep this up and keep him in the mix like this, he'll do very well for himself. I don't have a lot of faith in them doing that, but you know, the guy was on fire out there. He had a great match, and Swerve usually always has great matches, so these two work very well together. And I do wonder for Swerve what that means for his immediate future. Like, are they potentially building to maybe a Swerve heel turn? You know, is Swerve getting a little stale maybe in the current role that he's in? Does he need to go back to having that harder edge? Because really, he was at his most interesting when he was feuding with Hangman. And I do feel like he walks around with a chain every week looking all tough and badass, but he's lost some of that edge. And I don't know, if he's not going to be in the immediate world title picture. So like now we know he's not wrestling for the title at Revolution. Maybe they're going to have him wrestling for it at Dynasty because Dynasty is the event where he won the championship for the first time. Maybe Dynasty is kind of Swerve's show. But in the meantime, like, where do you go with him? I feel like there's got to be maybe a shift in direction as far as his character goes. We weren't done yet, though. They went backstage after the match. Renee was with MJF asking for his thoughts on the match next week that he's having with Brody King. He said that if that oversized bag of milk with Sharpie written all over him thinks he has a shot, he's got another thing coming. Kenny Omega shows up. And he says, one more week, one more win, and I'll be seeing you at Revolution for the championship. So he puts his hand out. MJF just walks away. As he's walking away, he bumps into Andrade. And Andrade says, I want to slap you right now. Because they've been beefing on social media. And the other day, it might have been yesterday, but the other day, Andrade said to him, when I see you, like, I'm going to find you when I get to Dynamite, when I get to TV, and like I'm going to punch you in the face, all right? Playing off the fact that he has literally punched someone in the face backstage in the past and it got him into some hot water. So they've been beefing on social media. He goes, but, and he looked down at the title around MJF's waist, and he just pointed to it and says, I want that. So MJF just keeps on walking. He walks right out of the building. There's a waiting SUV outside. He puts his hand on the door. He goes to open the door. And someone, we can't see who, pushes the door shut. And then we see that it is Hangman Adam Page. And so the two of them share a very brief little stare down. MJF quickly gets into the car. He yells at the driver to drive. Off they go. And that leaves Hangman with a smirk on his face to close the show. So yet again, as was the case last week, the in-ring really carried the day. Main event was fantastic. I thought the women's match was also very good. And really, there were a lot of matches on this show that were at least good. Those were the two standouts for me. The TNT title match was good as well. You know, the world title scene, look, I don't really have much else to say about it that I haven't already said. It's the most interesting part of the show. We got a little bit of progression on the Callis family stuff with those backstage segments. Fletcher, Takeshita, Okada. It's still moving at a glacial pace. I'm not saying give it all away now. I would hope and assume this is building to a more proper singles match, right? Not worried about the Continental Classic or anything, but doing it a proper Okada Takeshita match that hopefully will be better than what we got last month, and doing that in Los Angeles in March. So, you know, we still have a little bit of time left to go, but I don't know, man. It's been moving at a glacial pace. Kind of like Punk in the main event on Raw Monday night. That's the last I'll say about that. But the other thing I also like, I like how they've already set up two big matches for the show next week. So we know we're getting Kenny Omega and Andrade, and non-title, we're getting MJF and Brody King. And then whoever the Young Bucks are teasing that they're going to be wrestling. But those are two big matches right away that we already know for next week. So I liked it. I liked the show this week. Let's take a look at the poll. What did you think of Dynamite from Texas? 57% thumbs up for tonight's show. 18.8% thumbs in the middle. And 24% thumbs down. At Solomonster on X is where you guys can go to vote in the poll. But you already knew that. You already knew that. Let's get to your super chats right now. CM Sloth. Yeah, it was not great. What are you gonna do? We're 380 likes. Remember, the goal is 432. So saith the wheel. If we hit 432 likes, we will do Be the Booker. But I leave that up to you. You guys have until I get to the end of the East to try to make that happen. Joseph Stewart is with us. And wishing all of us a very happy Wednesday here. It says, praying for Mick Foley and his family. Yes, Mick unfortunately lost his mom. I think she was suffering from dementia, I believe. It says, I really hope Dom returns this weekend at the Royal Rumble. I believe we will see him there, yes. Hey, Mr. Movie Maniac, or Manic, or Maniac. Maniac's cooler. Thank you, I appreciate that. Hope Liv and Dom reunite at the Rumble. Yeah, I don't see that at the Rumble. They're going to be in their own separate Rumbles this weekend. True Grit, I saw many years ago. It's been a long time, but yes, I did see it at some point. Oh, you got a lot of buy or sells here, huh? I'm going to go... Well, I mean, you kind of already know the answer, I think, to some of these. He-Man over Spider-Man. Skeletor over Green Goblin. 90th birthday to Alan Alda. Wow, he's 90, huh? You know, William Shatner is in his, mid-90s. Doesn't look it, though. In fact, there was a photo, and I don't know why people are bothering this man, but apparently William Shatner was driving around somewhere, and he was stopped at a stoplight. And one of these paparazzi fucks photographed him. He's sitting in his car, and he's got a bowl of cereal at the light. Spoon and everything, and he's eating a bowl of cereal in the car. I would think of all the things that you would be eating in your car as you're driving, a bowl of cereal wouldn't be it. But you know what? When I get to my 95th birthday, which will never happen, but if it did, you know what? If I wanted to eat cereal in my car, then fuck it. I'm going to eat cereal in my car. Because I'm 90 years old and I don't give a shit. Of course, I would hope I'm no longer driving at 90 years old. I think there should be an age limit. I firmly believe this. No later than 70, you turn in your license. But anyway, happy birthday to Alan Alda. Masters of the Universe or X-Men? Masters of the Universe. He-Man or Wolverine? Got to go He-Man on that. And I'll go Storm over Thekla. Cyclops over Man-at-Arms. Sabretooth over Beastman. See, I'm going with some X-Men characters here. And Evelyn and He-Man and Skeletor. Aladdin. Yeah, I think you know the answer to these. Thank you, Joseph. He goes, which role would you play, Luke Skywalker or Batman? I would love to be Batman. In fact, how do you know I'm not Batman? If I was Batman, I wouldn't tell you, right? You don't know if I'm Batman or not. And He-Man over Superman. Dude, I've said it multiple times. I'm not a Superman guy. Hey, Donald, thank you. Joseph, again, thank you for all the love here. He says also, the picture, have you seen the picture of John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, and Lee Marvin, Dean Martin, and Barbara Streisand on the Paramount Loft? No, I would think I would remember that if I did. Would I like to see Zendaya as Talia al Ghul in the new Batman movie, with Lawrence Fishburne as her father in a future movie? I don't know about Zendaya, but Lawrence Fishburne is okay in my book. You find him a role, I'm sure he'll knock it out of the park. Says, I'll be busy on Friday. I might not be here on the chat. Hope you're having a great week. Well, just so you know, I'm going to be... My plan right now, just so everybody knows, is I am probably going live at 3:30-ish in the afternoon Eastern, because I believe I'll be able to watch SmackDown at noon. So I may just watch SmackDown at noon all the way through and then go live right after. But I'm definitely not going live in my normal 11 o'clock or 11:15 time slot on Friday night. Especially I have to wake up early on Saturday, so probably 3:30 in the afternoon. If I end up going live later, then we'll go live later. But hopefully some of you will be able to join. Elder, I think it's because they're jealous. That's why. And they're just mean people. Mean, miserable people. GMB says, what's the best part about being in Sacramento? If I'm ever in Sacramento, I will let you know. Fried Chicken says, Friday Night SmackDown is like having a chicken cordon bleu with baked ziti on the side. Raw on Netflix is like having a small portion of rice and fish. Well, then what's Dynamite? The food to describe TNA is like a pot of cooked ground beef. They can turn that ground beef into something. It says, despite the loss, I'm still a huge fan of Thekla. I would buy her a beer and smoked sausage on a roll. That's oddly specific. Thank you, brother. Bender McSimpson says, great main event. Tony Khan better have some big plans for Andrade if he is going to have him beat Swerve. Well, I mean, the big plan is to have him lose to Kenny Omega. The key is what happens after that. He was super over on the show tonight. So, like, if that were to continue, yeah, he definitely needs to be featured in a more prominent way. He can't just be, you know, another background player in the Callis family, you know, number 6 or number 4 in the Callis family. Well, now, $15 super chat. Ciampa in AEW will be absolutely sick. Awesome debut. Side note, it's time for me to simp for Stardom again. Next week, February 7th, Supreme Fight on pay-per-view. Love you, Solo. Still the best at what you do. Thank you, brother. Yeah, Stardom. I didn't get to check out too much of Stardom last year, but last year they had a very good year business-wise. I think they actually might have generated more money than New Japan did for Bushiroad. Right, they had that big show in was it April, where they had like 7,000 plus people. Linklex says, what is Rocky Romero's finishing move? The fuck you asking me for? How the hell am I supposed to know? He never wins his matches. He never has a chance to hit one. I don't think he has a finishing move. You know, when you lose losing is his finishing move. He hit it again tonight. Phil says, hi, Solo. Did you know that the original title for John Wick was called Scorn, but Keanu kept accidentally calling it John Wick during interviews, so the studio renamed it? Is that true? It's actually funny if that's true. I didn't know that. Roscoe P. Coltrane, thank you for the $2.99. Australian. Arabian Night says, damn, how much was Jericho making all of these signings? I'm telling you, man, how much money came off the books from that one fucking contract? Says, Tony Khan must have loved black and gold. He signed like 85% of that man's division. Is Gargano next? Well, depending on when his contract is up, he may well be. At the rate things are going. Devin from NJ says, buy or sell. Big head signs at wrestling shows. Oh yeah, we gotta burn those. We gotta burn the big heads. Unless I see my big head. If someone wants to bring a big Solomonster head, I'll accept that. But yeah, these big heads at shows, they have to be burned. Andre Jefferson, $10 super chat. It's great to see Ciampa sign with AEW and not the Don Callis family. A great debut, and hope Tony Khan does great with him. I'm really starting to think Shawn Michaels was the brains behind NXT and not Triple H. Well, look, I mean, Shawn Michaels, if you're talking about black and gold, Shawn Michaels had no, creatively anyway, he had no connection, no role within that. Triple H had, people writing. It wasn't like everything was his idea. But no, it was him who oversaw that period. He was trying to build his own super indie. And B. Needler. Haven't seen you before, but your insight changes wrestling. I think that's a compliment. I'll take it as one. I think. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Let me just refresh this and make sure I got everybody here so I don't leave nobody out. No, we got a few more. Alex says, Brother Solo, buy, rent, sell on your favorite RVD match. Against Jericho at Unforgiven 01, Cena One Night Stand 06, or against Angle and Austin at No Mercy 01. Much love. Man, you know, I haven't seen that No Mercy match in a long time. I kind of want to go with that one, but I don't. Oh, man. The Jericho one also at Unforgiven, I remember that being really good, but I'd have to go back and rewatch it. I'll go with the One Night Stand. I don't think the actual match at One Night Stand was anything special, but just for the atmosphere in the building that night and everything, it was a special match. I'll buy on that one. I'll rent on the match with Angle and Austin, and I'll sell on the Jericho one. Chicago for MBK. Ciampa has a great entrance. And that's all for tonight. His song is quite great. And Carl Winslow. Yes, the Carl Winslow, apparently, is with us. Says, be the Booker hell. Miz versus Evil. Oh my God. In a Punjabi prison match. Yeah, that's right. I have to add Evil now, I guess. Once he debuts in WWE, I'll have to add him to be the booker. But I have to wait to see what his name is. If they change his gimmick, I'm telling you, we're gonna have Good is gonna be debuting. I did see something where WWE, I think, trademarked the name Sinister. I don't know if that's a legitimate trademark filing that they made. That might give us some insight into what his new name will be. GMB says Sacramento Post was a Hollywood Rock reference. You got to specify with these things. Super Pony. Are Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Finn Balor going to be the only black and gold talents that never sign with AEW, or will one of them one day sign there? I don't think any of them will sign with AEW. That is just my belief. I don't think it's going to happen. And Side of the Ham, 420. Says, I went to AEW in Orlando on January 21st, and somebody had a Solomonster sign. I didn't ask him about it since I had to pee, but it was cool to see. Well, yeah, that probably was, that was last week. Oh, yeah, that was last week's show. That was probably Rican's son. Yeah, Rican's son had the, was it the Solomonster Bebe sign? Yeah, he always tries to bring it to the shows in Orlando. He used to bring it to, like, Daly's Place. I think Daly's Place is... Do I have this right? I think I read somewhere that Daly's Place is being renovated. So it's closed. They're not going to be able to run it for a few years. I thought I had read that somewhere. Yeah, I mean, again, I saw somebody posted an image of a trademark filing for Sinister, which I think is legit. And you would assume that if it just so happens that the rumors are that they're going to sign some guy named Evil, so you just put two and two together, that may end up being his new name. Anyway, we did hit the special goal tonight, which was 432 likes. We are currently at 437. See? The wheel tried to defeat you all, but as you can see, the wheel did not win. You guys did. So let's go ahead and be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
Daly's is down for a while. Yeah, see, I thought I had heard that. Well, I guess there'll be no Daly's Place shows for a few years. That's all right. All right, here we go. We get one shot at this. We got to make it a good one. Did you not hear what I said? I said we have to make it a good one. We land on Miz and R-Truth. Oh God, this is when they de-unified the tag belts, I think. What a terrible decision that was. What an awful decision that was. And I said it at the time. I said this is probably not going to end well. And look at the state of the tag team divisions right now on Raw and SmackDown. Garbage. Absolute garbage. Miz and R-Truth are going to defend those titles. Well, now business has picked up. If there's any justice in this wrestling world, these two men will be part of the Hall of Fame class of 2026. Because I don't see them flying out to Saudi Arabia next year. You got to get it done this year. Axe and smash. Demolition. Put them in the hall. Do what the writers did not have or the voters, or whoever votes in the NFL one, did not have the balls to do with Bill Belichick. Put demolition in the Hall of Fame. Right, women's Be the Booker, we have Deonna Purrazzo, who I believe is a, what title does she have? Is she the pure champion, the Ring of Honor Women's pure champion? Here in this image, she was the Impact Knockouts champion. A fine choice. Deonna Purrazzo will be defending that title against Naomi. Also a former champion. This is not the best version of Naomi, though. Best version of Naomi was the version that we got before she had to leave. She had more important things to tend to. She is the pure champion. Okay, that's what I thought. The inaugural Ring of Honor Women's Pure Champion. So basically, Tony created a belt to give her something to do because he was doing nothing with her. Very good. All right, it's main event time, and guess who it is, everybody? He has sent Morse code to let us know that he was going to be and be the booker tonight. So this was not unannounced. Actually, I opened my fortune cookie the other night, and there was a message from him in the fortune cookie that said, I will be appearing and be the booker. It is the OTC. Roman Reigns has graced us with his presence. He will be defending his championship there in that image against Mankind. Roman Reigns and Mankind. That'd be a fine match. I think that actually would be a very good match. Where is Issa? Did she go crazy to see? Oh, Issa's probably just sitting outside of his house right now. She's got binoculars on the seat next to her. She's waiting to get a glimpse. Roman Reigns and Mankind. I like that. Well, I'm glad I was able to give you guys a clean sweep since we only have the one round tonight. At least we made it a good one. Didn't Naomi defeat Deonna Purrazzo for the Knockouts title? You're asking the wrong person. Somebody in the chat will have to answer that for me. Because my answer is I don't know. Mankind elevates literally anyone he is in the ring with. Well, he was in the ring with Al Snow, and I wouldn't say that there was a lot of elevation going on there. He was in the ring with Al Snow. He was in the ring with Val Venus. I wouldn't say everybody, but yes, most of the people that he worked with, most of the people that they intentionally had him work with, who they wanted to push to a level higher than him, so they put them in the ring with Mick, he did his job. He helped elevate them. And for Undertaker, I still maintain he is Undertaker's greatest rival. I've answered that question a couple of times before. People think, oh, it's Kane, it's Shawn Michaels. No, it's not. It's Mankind. Mankind was the first, he was the first one truly to come along where it felt like he was the Undertaker's equal. And the Undertaker could not figure this man out. Multiple matches over multiple pay-per-views. His greatest rival is Mankind. Never seen Rick Rude in Be the Booker? I'm pretty sure he's in there. Yeah, I've just been so freaking busy. I've got so many plans to update. I'm going to blow up Be the Booker. I actually have an idea in my head to just kind of overhaul the look. And I don't know how it would come off, so I kind of want to play around with it where you would just have like a static background, but then have the individual images. Just the images of the actual person, and then they're just completely randomized. So I don't know if I want to do that, but I have names to pull, names to add, rounds to add. We're going to have some fun with Be the Booker in 2026. You just wait. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out with me here on a Wednesday. I will be live with you again on Friday at a weird time, probably 3:30 in the afternoon. So as long as you're subscribed and you have your notification bell on, it should notify you when I go live. I know for whatever reason, some people don't get notifications from YouTube, and I'm not sure why. But this would be a good time to make sure you have your notifications on. So if I go live at a wacky time, it'll let you know. Hopefully you can join. But for sure, I will be here on Saturday for the Royal Rumble. Is this the end? Is this the end of AJ Styles in WWE? I think it is. We'll find out together on Saturday, and then we'll talk about it. And then Sunday, a brand new episode of The Sound Off, episode 949. I will have my thoughts, full thoughts, and a review on WWE Unreal Season 2. So you'll have that. You'll have the Rumble fallout and all the other news of the week. That is coming your way this Sunday. All right, be well. Stay safe. Have yourselves a great night. Hit that like button on your way out. Leave a comment. Share with anybody you think might enjoy this. And I'll see you back here at some point on Friday for the SmackDown review and Saturday for the Royal Rumble. Until then, take care, guys.